With practice and the qualifying done at the Tricky Triangle, Brian and I are in to talk all things Pocono. We'll build some DraftKings lineups, tell you who needs to be in your lineup, who needs to be out of your lineup, where the ownership may congregate, and so much more. We'll also look at the outright betting board and kind of get where the numbers have moved with practice done, with qualifying set, and everything ready to go for Sunday's race. All of that and more on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on grass.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, practice done, qualifying done. Brian's live from Vegas. The Xfinity race is done.
And I profited. I think it's the first time in months I profited on an Xfinity
Christmas
race.
Miracle. I thought because you didn't actually bet Allgaier this week that he was going to win. And then I was thinking, well, I bet Byron to win Sunday's race, so he's going to win Saturday's race. Obviously, either of those things happened. And Cole Custer wins, but Taylor Gray, top 5, cash in.
6-1, that's obviously, I can't take any credit for this number whatsoever. I saw a few people mentioning this on the Twitterverse or X, whatever the hell you want to call it. And, kudos to them. I jumped aboard the fact that he was running in the 19 JGR team and he was given the better pit crew just before the race. It was too good of a number to pass up. He qualified really well and then luckily found himself in that top 5. But we're not here to talk Xfinity, Kyle. We're going to jump into the big boys, the Cup Series, and there's been significant line movement, change at the top of the board. And as a result, I feel like DK is going to be really fun this week because there are some strong cars not starting near the front.
Yeah, we're going to have some interesting decisions to make. Obviously, we'll see how we want to allocate our resources. But let's just dive into that kind of elite group. Denny Hamlin starting 4th, 11K. You've been going on and on about him all day and how fast he looked, how good he looked. Kyle Larson starting 12th, Christopher Bell starting 13th, Martin Truex, another Toyota that looked really, really fast. And my guy, William Byron, starting on the front row at even 10K. I guess, are you interested in a Truex, a Hamlin as kind of a dominator? Do you want to get in a Bell or a Larson? Where's your head at with this group? Because there is some really, really good options, but you're going to have to spend up and then you're going to have to make decisions from there.
Yeah, well, I think just looking at past Pocono races and considering the fact that we only have 160 laps on tap, I don't think a dominator is really going to be as crucial as going for guys that are going to make up spots. So the guys starting, a little bit further back in the field who have a chance to compete for the win, I think they're going to make a lot of sense. But from what I saw in practice, watching the lap by lap data, I think there's 2 cars that are head over heels better than everybody else. And that's Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. And as we jump into the odds a little bit later, you'll see the sportsbooks completely agree here. And, I think you're going to have to pick one or possibly both of these guys, because I think there's a good chance that both of them are laying down fastest laps by by alternating who's in the lead and drafting off of each other and vice versa. But it does present the risk of losing a ton of placement points if they get off pit cycle and there's a caution at the wrong time and stuff like that happens. But I am one that I want one of these guys, at least one of them, in a lineup.
Yeah, I wonder if it makes sense to grab 2 of them. Probably not 2 of like Truex Hamlin, but you could do like a Hamlin Bell or a Truex Bell, or Byron Larson's always really fun. I think unfortunately those are probably the names to keep an eye on. I think Denny's a little more comfy, but he's more expensive. But maybe a little more people are willing to go there a little bit more. It's interesting to see. I will have some Byron exposure. I know, he, like I said, he looked really good in the Xfinity race today. He got 3rd. I've been on him all week. His number ballooned out to about 12, and now is back kind of around that 9 or 10 range. So I think he is a compelling option. I think, a unique way to start, save a little salary off the top, but Denny could just go out there, lap the field, and it may not matter. Looking at some of the stuff over on Win the Race, and kind of their practice model. Denny really made up ground late in qualifying and late in the runs, and that is a little scary because as the race comes to him, I do worry that he is really comfortable and ends up crushing everybody and making us look silly if we ended up fading him. So
And
I
I was just going to say, to add to your point, Denny wasn't necessarily fast in practice, but this has become the norm for the 11 team, where Hamlin uses practice to almost test to see what he's got. And from the laps that I saw him throwing down, this car has almost zero fall off in it. And if you're going to give Denny a car that doesn't fall off, and you saw the speed clearly come to him in qualifying, like you said, there's a legit possibility that Denny just throttles the field here and puts together a Chris Bell or Kyle Larson type performance from Phoenix or Las Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah. And it may be too hard to come back from. So we will definitely build some lineups with him. Let's talk about the rest of the field to figure out how we're going to make this work. So Reddick, 9,800, Chase Elliott, 95, Blaney, 93, Ty Gibbs pulled it, 9K. Did you go back to the well with Ty Gibbs this week, Brian, or did you let that one slip on by?
So I'm kind of angry at myself because I was very, very cautious with my poll bets this week. And instead of doing my normal like 40, $50 on two guys, I just put $10 on Ty Gibbs at 10-1 to hit the poll. And of course, the one week he freaking does it is the week that I don't put very much on the actual number. So, I mean, obviously it's a little bankroll builder. It helps me, add to the card here post practice. But yeah, I hit it again. The win is coming. It's coming soon. I wouldn't put it past him to win this week, but again, like, I am not going to get invested in his current numbers because he's never won in the Cup Series.
Yeah, I don't know. We can talk about that more on the odds board, but I think he is an interesting pivot if you want to get different, or if you end up starting with a Larson or a Bell. I think Bell and then Gibbs, especially if you like the Toyotas as the dominator, could be a fun way to kind of get your lineup going. We'll see about the Fords. It's been a weird week. We came in with low expectations. Brad K looked solid. We'll talk about him here in a minute. But Blaney at 9,300, starting eighth, could make some sense, especially the second dominator. We skipped over Reddick, who you notoriously bet every single week. Once again, going back to the well there, went once or twice, maybe three times. Are you interested in Reddick from a DraftKings perspective?
I mean, I guess I think the elite type of speed that he's shown over the last month, the same reason why we talked about his championship outright or his championship future earlier in the week, is that this car is extremely fast. And, when after his spin and he put fresh tires on it, he did come back out and put down the fastest lap, albeit, multiple minutes after other guys had been on there, rubber had laid down, blah, 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 which he will. And then he goes out and he qualifies seventh here. I don't know. I don't hate it. I mean, Toyotas are going to be extremely strong, but do you trust a guy on a track where it's become notorious for guys popping tires or letting somebody get underneath them and then them getting put into the wall? Do you trust a guy like Reddick, who should have won last week had he just slowly caught up to Bowman instead of pushing it in a corner that he didn't need to? And we've, ruined a couple of races that he should have won the past couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're not betting Gibbs until he wins. I'm not betting Reddick until I see him. And maybe that'll be the week that he wins. That'll be this week. But yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Anyone else in this 9K range, like Chase Elliott, any interest to you? I guess he's the only one we really haven't talked on.
Elliott's an interesting case because it sounded like he wasn't too comfortable in his car during practice. And, he did all right during practice, and then he had plenty of speed during qualifying. I mean, the HMS guys between Byron and Bowman, like, they were extremely fast. I wouldn't hate getting there. I just think he's such a popular driver that a lot of people are going to be on him starting outside the top 10, thinking that he's got a couple of good runs in him coming into Pocono. So I don't know. I'm not too high on him. I think Blaney could go a little underappreciated because he's been really strong here at Pocono the last couple of years, and we know how good he is at tracks that aren't necessarily don't have the high degree of banking. And, with him starting eighth, when he shows up with speed, that car seems to pop. And I think this is a potential area where Blaney could surprise some people on Sunday and find his way to the front.
I know Circa, you were mentioning, was taking a lot of money on him. That was pre-practice and qualifying, right?
Yeah. He had gotten bet down to, I believe it was like 1150.
Let's talk eights. Brad Kay, Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch, Chris Buescher. It's kind of like where the veterans are hanging out. Brad looked fast, and especially late in the runs looked really good. Starting 14th, he can make a lot of sense. I have my Logano top four stuff, but we'll see with him. He feels like a guy who you're really hoping he grabs track position and makes it stick more than it's just going to be fast and good all day. The want no part of Trackhouse or RCR. I'm all set there. Chris Buescher starting 18th, 8K. Do you have an interest in double dipping on the RFK, or is it really just Brad or bust?
Well, what's really interesting, I'm actually leaning a little bit in the opposite direction on Ross Chastain this week. He got better as the practice went along, and he's also somebody that when he finds a setup or a car, like he can make it work towards the end. And we've seen this with him, of late. I believe it was Nashville where he found track position and then he was able to keep it up front. And if, with Pocono being kind of a strategy race, if Chastain again can make his way to the front and have clean air, I wouldn't put it past the one team stealing a win here this weekend.
Between Tyler Reddick and Ross Chastain, have fun staying bored.
I was just gonna say though, I haven't been on the Watermelon Man for quite some time. So
it's true. It's been some time. Usually talking me off the ledge, and
yeah.
Here I am saying, Brian, think about what you're saying. The car looks dope, but good luck.
Yeah.
Let's talk 7Ks because I think this is where it gets interesting. Bowman starting 6th. Back-to-back wins for the Bowman.
No way.
Bubba Wallace, 670, 600, starting 29th. I think is going to be popular, but I think worthwhile. Suarez starting 16th if you want to double down on the Trackhouse thing. Gragson, Briscoe, Barry, because why would you break up SHR? And then Eric Jones, who traditionally at faster tracks has been good, but what do you make of Legacy? This midsection, the 8s and 7s, is just, it's a lot of questions. It's a lot of gross options. I don't know if I want to really get involved. I'm in on Bubba. Beyond there, you'll have to kind of sell me on someone else.
Yeah, Bubba did have some significant fall off in practice comparatively to the rest of the 2311 and JGR guys, but obviously the car's fast. I mean, you saw that with he had a pretty decent single lap speed. Gragson and Briscoe, I have zero confidence in them. Barry, the only way he's going is backwards. And how do you trust Legacy at this time, regardless of what Eric Jones has done in the past? So I feel like for me, this is kind of a Bubba or bust type of range. And, again, unless I just talked about his teammate, but if Trackhouse somehow figured something out this weekend at Pocono and they essentially become last year's RFK at this point of the season, where they all of a sudden they find something and they start bringing a little bit more race pace, I think Suarez is somebody who could perform pretty well and sneak inside the top 10 possibly. And at 7,500 starting 16th, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people that are on him.
No, and for good reason.
Yeah, he's not good really.
No.
So
no. Any interest in the SHR guys? They're all,
no.
like I said, right there. Barry starting in the top 5, probably hard to get to, but Briscoe or Gragson, I know you're kind of out on Gragson in general, but we're going to have to talk ourselves into somebody. They're both, cheap enough. Looks like Briscoe will come in with a little bit lower ownership. Are we just grasping for straws if we're digging in with them, or should we just go down to 6K and try and convince ourselves that it's not that much different, and honestly save ourselves a few $100 and make lineup builds easier?
Yeah, I feel like you're literally gambling if you're going with the SHR guys when you could go a little bit deeper into the field here and get guys who are probably just as talented on this type of track for much cheaper.
So let's talk about that range. McDowell starting 21st, Gilly Gang 33rd, Austin Cindric starting 20th, Ricky Stenhouse 31st, Carson Hocevar 15th, AJ Allmendinger 26th, Justin Haley 34th, and Ryan Priest 36th. I mean, if you want to do the SHR thing, you could go Priest at 36th. Dinger ran in the Xfinity race, looked pretty solid today. Maybe he's interesting at 26th. You could, if you really want to, talk yourself into Austin Cindric in the Penske garage
No.
having something this week. I like McDowell. I like Gilliland. There's opportunity here. It's just finding the value over the landmines.
Yeah, I think Dinger's an interesting play, but he's probably going to be extremely popular. Justin Haley, again, he's safe. He's a safe driver, and you kind of want that for somebody who's starting back here, and you're just hoping that he can avoid trouble and keep the tires on it. And he's probably a top 25 car. I don't think he's going to have the speed to challenge for a top 20, but if they stay on cycle and they keep the wheels on it again, I think he's got legit opportunity to pop. And they're probably the only two guys that I like in this range. Maybe Stenhouse, just because he has a decent history of low to mid-teen results here at Pocono, but he's been kind of all over the place, and he's coming off his best string of races of the season, and you kind of expect a little bit of a regression to the mean out of that team.
Yeah. There's a lot to consider. I will say, from an expected ownership percentage, Austin Cindric is a good leverage option. Granted, he's Austin Cindric and should have very low ownership, but I think he is somewhat interesting. And especially if you're building like a Blaney something or a Logano something, I don't hate it. It feels really gross, but like we've done worse and with less. So I don't know, man. This is. It seems like some weeks the board really speaks to us and kind of helps make things work, and other weeks it's just like pure vomit, and you just kind of have to tread through it and find the value. Let's round out the rest of the field and see if we can't build some lineups. So Zane Smith, John Hunter Nemechek, Corey LaJoy, Daniel Hemrick, Harrison Burton, Cody Ware, JJ Yaley. Like, it just keeps getting more and more gross. I mean, I guess like there's opportunity here, like we've seen in the past few weeks where there's been somebody who kind of luck boxes their way into a solid finish. Do we want to mess around with Hemrick or Ware or any of these other jabronis?
What's kind of gross is the fact that the only guy that I think I would even consider in this range is probably the first name you mentioned, and that's Daniel Hemrick. And that's saying something considering Colleague and specifically that team has not been good, but they've been able to luck themselves into decent finishes by, just like Justin Haley, just keeping the wheels on it and avoiding trouble. And, riding in the back here, if the field gets spread out, I think Hemrick can do just that, while a guy like Corey LaJoy wrecks himself on qualifying. John Hunter Nemechek, who the hell knows what that legacy team is doing? And then I have zero interest in the bottom two guys of Cody Ware and JJ Yaley, who didn't even throw down a qualifying lap.
So LaJoy is, he's going to the back. He was decent, and then he had some bad fall off. Maybe he's sort of interesting. I don't know. I mean, if we were grasping at straws with the more expensive guys, I think this is definitely the range. I'm looking at kind of past performances. Like Haley was really good here last year. The year before, not so good.
I mean, there's a quite a bit of randomness that occurs on a track
really
like this,
is.
where where it's a very long track where pit cycling and untimely or very timely cautions can drastically affect where somebody finishes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, should we build the lineup and see if we can find something we like?
Let's do it.
Dennis Hamlin and log off, or do you want to do something else?
I got to tell you, man, I'm on the Martin Truex Jr. train this
Okay.
week. I think it's a
Do it.
Marty party.
Let's do Truex. I mean, let's just build an old lineup. I'll take Brad Keselowski.
All right, I love it. I feel like there's going to be a lot of mid-range guys this week. I almost feel like you can get away with one of the higher price dudes and fill your lineup with a lot of guys that can make their way to the front. And sticking with that, I am going to go to Watermelon Man himself, Ross Chastain here.
Okay. Man. Let's just go Gilliland.
All right, I don't hate it. Oh, okay. We're gonna stay in this range here to see what we can do at the end, and we're gonna add Allmendinger starting 26.
Puke. That opens up a lot for us, though. Blaney's probably the option, right? If we want, like, Dinger and Gilly probably aren't gonna win. Chastain.
I was just gonna say, if you told me that the top 4 finishers were Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski, Ross Chastain, and Ryan Blaney, how far fetched is that?
It's not. You put Denny Hamlin or someone. There's your top 5. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I like that.
Because it at least gives us 2 guys starting inside the top 10 that could potentially lead laps early enough.
Yeah. All right, let's see. I'm gonna push Byron Larson start on us and see if we can dig ourselves out. I don't think we can, but we'll see what we like.
I mean, if we're doing the Chevy thing, let's add another Chevy, but near the bottom. Let's do Hemrick.
Sure. Have to balance it out somewhere. McDriver.
So he's interesting because he's starting like right near where his expected finish is.
Yeah.
You know,
Stenhouse. Let me look at.
I talked about Stenhouse early in the week as somebody that I potentially liked as, I mean, obviously long shot top 10, but
yeah,
he's going to have to luck his way up there. But
this is gonna like make me want to throw up a lot.
And sometimes that's good.
I'm almost tempted to spend the extra $100 and get Austin Cindric, who I think is going to be a fraction of the ownership.
All right, well, let's try it.
I mean, we could even like throw Logano or go back to the Blaney well if you want to build up a little, team stack.
I mean, I don't know about Logano. I feel like there's too much risk with him falling back.
So we have 8,600, so we could go down and get somebody like. Oh, we haven't used Bubba at all, so I'd be more than happy to go there.
All right, yeah. Let's put Bubba in.
Bubba's in 76. That opens up basically we're in the same range again. So we don't have a second dominator, so we could do Tyrone. We could.
He's going to be good. There's just a lot of risk with him falling backwards because this is not unlike last week at the street course where if you got out front, it was going to be really hard for anybody to get in your way and affect your racing. Yeah. This is not like that. Like pitting, and then you're going to run into traffic eventually. So
so we need Byron to lead laps early. Then we have Larson come up and challenge. So do you have interest in Keselowski or Logano? Or would you rather just go to like Chastain and hope he can move forward. I feel much more comfortable with Logano and Keselowski, but maybe that's silly.
I like Keselowski. I mean,
all right, Keselowski is save 800, so it's a little bit different.
And then also too, like again, we've talked about this in the past, but you can use betting odds to help you look at what you think is going to happen in DFS wise. And Brad Keselowski's number has shortened significantly at most sports books post practice based on practice and qualifying. And so, starting 14th in the same range as like Ross Chastain, and he's right around the Kyle Busch stuff. His odds are way shorter than either of those guys. So his chances of popping are way better than them according to the odds makers.
Save that lineup. One more. So I have a question for you because I have a start that I think would be fun, but it would also require us to not do Denny Hamlin. So that seems dangerous. Do you have any interest in a Ty Gibbs, Christopher Bell start, or should we just do Denny Hamlin and not overthink it?
I'm going to go on record and hopefully not get destroyed and have to eat crow after the race, but I don't think Christopher Bell is going to be very good tomorrow.
Okay. Dennis Hamlin it is.
Yeah.
Beyond Dennis. I mean, Bubba, we could do the Suarez, Chastain, we could do.
So the thing about Bubba is with them on the fighting for a playoff spot, they're probably going to get a little frisky when it comes to strategy. And I could see them running near the front at the end of stage 1 or, winning stage 2 and maybe leading laps at some point in this race. And if he finds track position because of a caution, you're going to run into somebody that's probably in your in the optimal. But again, you're going to need a lot to go right there.
Kyle Busch,
him too. I mean, he's been atrocious lately, but he's another guy in JGR, however, has a tremendous history at this track.
All right, you give me a name.
All right, so we haven't really talked about him, and I think that's actually good, and it might play to our benefit, but I think Chris Buescher is going to be somebody that's going to be strong on Sunday.
I could see
he's got a win here in the past. Or he's grabbed a pole here in the past. He's run decent. Oh man, I saw you looking at Logano.
I was actually looking at Keselowski, but Logano could be fun. I like Logano. I don't like Logano, but I like Logano, if that makes sense. I'll let you apply the logic to that statement.
All right, so let's get a little chalky and let's go with Justin Haley in this spot. Okay. Starting way back in the field.
I mean, I don't know why you would do that to me because it's just going to force me to make this click.
Oh my gosh!
If we're going to do the Penske Garage, let's do it. And the 96.
All right, so I think this build would be the perfect opportunity to grab a Gibbs. Because from the get-go, he can lead laps.
Yeah, but maybe we're building a Denny Hamlin smokes the field.
And okay, so then we want another mover.
I mean, the name that jumped out to me was we just take the whole Penske Garage, but maybe that's crazy.
Right. Go for it. Why not?
The other thing we could do is Keselowski.
Yeah, but we have Keselowski in both previous lineups, don't we?
Yeah.
We're gonna have 100% ownership on Kes.
That's a crazy statement.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Do Chase Elliott?
I don't know. I took a little bit of action on him at 12 and 14 prior to qualifying, but both on 14. I'm not sold on him winning.
Yeah, and I think he could end up in a, like you mentioned with Christopher Bell. Just
and I think Elliott, he's such a safe driver and such a safe play. I don't think he has necessarily the highest ceiling of these guys because I feel like they could run 5th or 6th and be completely satisfied with that. Whereas a guy like Keselowski or Ross Chastain or even Kyle Busch for that matter, if they're in that position, they're going to do everything in their power to potentially win the race.
Yeah. So we're gonna go all in on the Penske garage, like it's wherever.
Like it's a championship race.
But,
I mean,
yeah,
I don't hate it. I don't think many people are going to do it.
Well, here we are. Truex, Blaney, Keselowski, Chastain, Gilliland, Dinger, Larson, Byron, Keselowski, Bubba, Cindric, Hemrick, Denny, Blaney, Logano, Cindric, Busher, Haley.
Oh
Don't
my
hate them.
gosh.
They're fine. I don't know that I feel great about it, but maybe that's a good thing. We are going green a little bit earlier tomorrow, it looks like, so we should probably make sure your lineups are set and your grid rival picks are done and your pick'ems over an underdog are set and bets are in and all that good stuff. Worm, I'm guessing, will go live probably around 9:30, a little pre-race poll.
Yeah, I think he said 9:30.
Perfect. Do you have anything else DraftKings wise before we jump over look at the outright odds?
I'm going to repeat what I said. I feel like Truex and Hamlin are going to be the class of the field. They're going to be the dominators that you're looking for. That being said, because there's only 160 laps, I'm kind of looking at this as a super speedway type of race where you kind of want maybe one guy you think is going to be in the front of the field, and then the rest is you want guys that are going to get some placement points.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a legit strategy. It's a good way to think about it. So betting card as it sits, I have Byron at 10, I have Reddick to top 3, I have Logano to top 4, McDriver to top 10 at 6-1, and Ty Gibbs top 5, plus 220. I'm happy to have all those. Bryant has McDriver at 200. Why not? Reddick at 9. Sure, why not? McDriver to top 10, Wallace to top 10, Gibbs over Reddick, Larson to top 5. Reddick boost over at Caesars at 1750 because he's a glutton for punishment, and Truex at 6. These are new ones, right?
Yes, yeah. I'm telling you, I'm all in on the Martin Truex Jr.
So
party
let's
this
go
weekend.
look at race winner. Let's pull up the most recent ones. You can get a boost at 1750 for Chase.
Oh, they must have just changed that.
Yeah. Denny is 4. Truex is 475. You can shop it 4 and 5 over here, but it's all going to be in that range. Larson is 6. Gibbs is 7. Byron is 9.5. Blaney is 10. And then we get into beyond there. So, talk to me about your Marty Party obsession.
Yeah, Martin Truex Jr. was the fastest car during practice, and I don't think it was really close considering Group B, kind of surprisingly during practice, was a little bit slower than Group A, and I think some of that can be attributed to the fact that Tyler Reddick screwed the pooch on lap 1 and caused everybody to stop, run a few caution laps, and then get back going. So their tires had to heat back up. But between him and Denny, again, they're going to be the two strongest cars in my opinion, and I think Truex is a little bit better than him. So I want to get some action on the JGR car that I think is slightly better and in need of a win a lot more than Denny is.
I'm looking at Ryan Stevens. This practice model is pretty sweet. It's got a lot of good information. It looks like Byron had some bad late laps, so I'm a little concerned as someone who's holding a Byron outright. I feel like I want to get some more outright exposure, but I don't know that I love anyone enough to buy in at these numbers.
Yeah, the numbers at Caesars are a little bit interesting. I feel like BetMGM, they like Keselowski. They have Keselowski sitting at 18.
Can you link me to that and I'll pull it up for the people?
Yeah, and Superbook, obviously, if you like Reddick, I feel like Superbook is going to be the best.
Do we have interest in Bowman, or is it just like
I don't know. How many times have we seen a driver go back to back in the Cup Series?
So that's what I was going to ask
And
you.
you think that Bowman's going to do it?
Oh,
I mean, come on now.
that's slander.
Hey, I'm just speaking the truth, man.
If Byron had won the Xfinity race, does that make you feel better about his outright for tomorrow, worse about his outright for tomorrow, or doesn't impact your feeling of his outright for tomorrow?
I'm sorry, repeat the question?
If Byron had won Xfinity, would it make
Uh-huh.
you, and you're holding a ticket for Sunday's race, does that make you feel better having that ticket, the fact that he won the Xfinity race? Does it make you feel worse, or does it make you feel about the same?
I don't think it changes anything, especially if you listen to what Byron said post race when they asked him about how much of this he can take to Cup Series, and he talked about how the Xfinity car is like slop compared to how on rails the Cup cars feel, and so it's a completely different driving style and driving experience, and so you can't really take much from how the Xfinity car races to the Cup car. But what he did say is that he got a good feeling about how the restarts are going to go, which is something to keep in mind. If we get a couple of late restarts here, Byron does have a significant leg up on the rest of the field, just seeing how everything's going to go this year. I mean, obviously, a lot of these guys have a lot of history on this track, especially Denny, who's probably the best in the Cup Series here. But I think Byron just getting that track time is going to help him in that aspect, not necessarily racing. I don't think it changes my outlook on them. And I mean, again, the JGR Toyotas they're just better than everybody else at this track. They've won, I think I heard of something like 9 of the last 12 Pocono races or something. So
Yeah.
JGR dominates here.
So should we just be betting Denny and not overthinking it, or should we? I mean, I guess we could look at Caesar's probably gonna have the better number, but like just bet Toyota to win the race. I'm sure the number is smashed at this point, but
ironically enough, it's actually longer. It's minus 105 now. Which doesn't make any sense to me. Don't get me wrong. It makes 0 sense.
It's at Caesars.
Yeah.
All right, welcome to the card. Yeah.
I mean, to be quite honest with you, I have 0 action on Denny Hamlin personally, because my personal card is much larger than what I give out here on the show. But I do have a lot of exposure to Chevy, to the HMS guys, and a couple of the Ford numbers. And even with my Truex and Reddick tickets, I'm considering hitting this Toyota manufacturer winner for more and risking.
Yeah, I went to it last week and it worked out. I think I'm gonna
No
go
risk,
back.
no biscuit.
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't expect Chevy to win it with Alex Bowman, but whatever works. And if you want a little preview, it'll probably be one of my best bets written up in the old newsletter, aoppodcast.substack.com. Down in the description, free newsletter, picks for the DraftKings, picks for betting, links to the episode, notes and news and all kinds of other stuff we can squeeze in there, plus our full betting card, plus a variety of other things. Any value on some of these longer shots? Logano, Bowman, Busch, Berry, Busher, Chastain at 40 is kind of interesting. That's the only one. Is that the best number I can get? Yeah, I don't hate that, because if Chastain has a good day, he's gonna contend. Maybe you go top Chevy instead if you feel like Denny or Truex or a Toyota is gonna smoke the field. That's the only one that I could even sort of convince myself isn't a terrible bet.
Yeah, it was interesting. I watched the raw data during practice. Like, I make it a point to watch lap by lap to see what guys are doing. And it was really interesting to see that guys like William Byron, Chase Elliott, they didn't have the greatest practice. They had significant fall off, and so I do think that there's a world where Ross Chastain is potentially better than these guys over the long run and is able to compete with them up at the front. So I do think that Chevy as a market is a little bit more open than what we normally see here. And definitely something that I would probably be much more inclined to bet than go with like a Chastain outright or like a Busch outright. If Busch somehow makes the correct, changes to his car and he's able to get to the front, I wouldn't surprise me if it's some weird guy that's popping as the top Chevy this week.
Yeah. I mean, there's going to be value. There's going to be opportunity because Larson's short. Byron's going to be pretty short. If you feel like kind of like Brian does, there may be opportunity there. Grabbing one of those longer shots might be the move. I think that'll do it for now, Brian. Is there anybody else you're considering adding to the card from an outright perspective?
I mean,
Like, is there room on your card for a Gibbs or a Truex or someone? I guess you already bet Truex, but like,
yeah,
you have McDriver, you have Reddick, and you have Truex. Any other room, or are you kind of like, I'm good? That will suffice.
I am actually going to go with Big Bad Brad and add a half a unit play on him, 18-1 over at BetMGM. I did bet him before practice and qualifying at 22 here in Vegas, so obviously I got some decent CLV because he's like 12 or 14 at most places. So clearly, if you could get to BetMGM, I like this play because if somebody's going to strategize his way to the front and to a victory, it would be somebody like Keselowski.
Yeah, I like that call, especially if you can get, like you mentioned, the 18. I think once you start getting into anywhere near 10, it's
it's a little bit too short.
Not necessarily comfortable. So very good. That is Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. If you've made it this far, make sure you smash that thumbs up. Subscribe if you've yet to do that. We're ever climbing. Check out our newsletter for a full betting card to see all of our thoughts. As always, you can follow us on Twitter. Reach out to us there if you have betting questions, if you're working on your final card. Highly suggest showing up to Chris Wormey's pre-race poll. Usually some good information, some good thoughts there. Smart comment section, and we kind of build our cards and get it into a good spot. So as the green flag drops and we get ready to go racing, we're sitting in a good spot. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.